Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
I enjoy a little risk when I'm working on a project. You know, a little difficulty. That was undoubtedly present since it was a huge film to be a part of. The man who rose to prominence in Hollywood, the villain, hardly ever took any action. At the age of 26, Alan Rickman was prosperous in running his own design firm when he took everyone by surprise. He gave up all Tobcom, the acting school's oldest student. His pals believed he was insane. The same was true of his bank account. However, this late start was only the beginning of a secret-filled life. He almost rejected Die Hard. He was never nominated for an Oscar, even though described as his generation's best actor. Additionally, he left behind 26 in his latter days. Journals with more than 1 million words of secrets in them. The story of Alan Rickman started far from the red carpet glitz. On February 21, 1946, he was born in Octon, West London, Council Estate. Margaret and Bernard, his parents, brought up 4 kids in the harsh post-war British environment. Life wasn't simple. His father was a decorator and painter. His mom looked after the home until she was forced to work and make money as well. The family's home was surrounded by rows of grey structures, an area characterized by rationing, thrifty food, and used clothing. Alan used to say that every aspect of the outfit was challenging. While waiting in line for a free lunch, he never forgot the ritual of buying tickets every Monday morning. Next came the catastrophe that altered everything. Alan's father passed away at the age of 8 from lung cancer. The loss was devastating. At night, the family's delicate stability disintegrated. After being a single mother, Margaret balanced working and parenting for kids by herself. She did anything she could for the post office. Could to sustain the family. She once remarried in search of stability. However, the marriage only lasted 3 years. Alan was impressed by her strength. He gave her a call. A tigress is a lady who never lets life break her. Observing her, he developed a lifelong sense of empathy and responsibility as a result of difficulty. In the midst of tremendous difficulty, Alan found a way out. He appeared on a school stage at the age of 11 for the first time. He played Captain Hook in a nativity pantomime mix that he was transformed by that moment. For a boy wearing tattered clothes in a small apartment, it seemed like an other universe on stage. He adored the enthusiasm, the outfits, and the hours. Acting, he later claimed, provided a doorway into ordinary life. This initial at his future profession, he would continue to play complicated for decades to come, antagonists that viewers would never forget. Alan found that education was his lifeline. He was awarded a scholarship to attend Latimer Upper School in 1956. The world was very different from the council estate. The school had tools, instructors who had faith in him, and chances he never would have thought of. However, things weren't always simple there. Alan, as a scholarship boy, he stood out. He recalled the discomfort of donning earned uniforms and waiting in line for free lunch vouchers for their more affluent peers. However, this encounter influenced him. It gave him the will to strive and taught him to be resilient. At Latimer, Alan learned calligraphy and acting. Both required patience and accuracy, attributes that subsequently characterized his theater and film work. Alan did not pursue acting after graduating from high school. Immediately he attended Chelsea to study graphic design from 1965 to 1968 Art College. He had an obsession with layouts and typography long before design was made simple by computers. He put almost endless effort on undertakings, even making contributions to underground periodicals. During that time, he acquired discipline, his attention to detail, abilities that will subsequently impact his performance. Following graduating, he was a co-founder of Graffiti, a design studio in Soho. The business prospered. They created album jackets, magazine drawings, and book covers. It was a creative center in vibrant London that is teeming with inspiration. By everyone, Alan's accounts were successful. He was well off and well-respected. A profession in design, but he had a restless feeling inside. When Alan was 26, he made a choice that startled his pals. In a letter to RADA, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, he requested an tryout. While most actors begin their careers at age 18, Alan was willing to risk everything for age. He became the oldest student in his class after RADA accepted him on a scholarship. While others, Alan was concerned about his mortgage payments and his grades. Nevertheless, he put in more effort than anyone else. Using his design expertise into performing, in a matter of weeks he changed from a graphic designer to a student of Shakespeare. Additionally, life outside of school. Alan met Rima Horton at Chelsea College of Art about the same period. They started a lifelong romance that lasted for more than 50 years. They survived silently away from the clamor of celebrity. They secretly got married in 2012 after. In tandem, Rima was frequently referred to be a saint by Alan for her endurance and devotion. They both greatly respected their decision to forego having children. Alan's transformation from designer paid to act. He departed RADA with honors and admiration. In 10 years, he became one of the world's most renowned performers after being the oldest student in his class. In 1978, Heffer showed up on the screen. In Romeo and Juliet, he portrayed Tybalt, a member of the Shakespeare's 37 plays will be filmed as part of the BBC's ambitious undertaking. The initial one broadcast on December 3. Rickman's powerful performance that evening was particularly noteworthy. The antagonists he would later make famous were alluded to in that Tybalt. However, at the time, he shared the screen with figures like John Gielgud and Dame Celia Johnson. He held his own, though Rickman spent the following few years primarily on stage. But in 1982 he was cast in Thethet, caused people to pause and gaze. In the Baxter Chronicles, he portrayed Reverend Odious Slope. This wasn't a typical villain. Trollope's Slope was devious, slimy and cunning, but in some way he was magnetic because of Rickman. The audiences were unsure on how to react. They detested they couldn't take their eyes off him. A critic even made a joke about ladies falling for Slope rather than their romantic lead. That was Rickman's strength. He didn't have a stereotype. He was simultaneously charming and twisted. Suddenly, Rickman transitioned from a theater regular to a serious TV celebrity. However, before Rickman spent years honing his craft with the Royal Shakespeare Company in order to get that screen attention. Immediately following, he joined the RSC after leaving the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and from 1978 to 1985, he worked continuously there. He appeared in numerous films including As You Like It and The Seagull. He practiced every day. He researched breath. He developed emotional self-control. He didn't simply act out Shakespeare. He experienced it firsthand. He also collaborated with titans, Brooke Peter Stevenson, Juliet. These were difficult but transformative years. Rickman didn't simply get better. He went deep. Later, his antagonists would benefit from its depth. Wait, you understood them, not just detested them. In 1985, however, Rickman risked the role that brought him international fame. In Liaison Dangereuse, he portrayed Vicomte de Valmont. After beginning in the UK, the play made its Broadway debut in 1987, an enormous amount for a production in Britain. Rickman's portrayal of Valmont was sultry, harsh, and simultaneously heartbroken. He received nominations and shocked New York reviewers for a Tony Award. It wasn't merely a hit role. There was a message. Rickman was able to lead. He could captivate. It also did something else. It brought Hollywood as calling. Rickman's voice, meanwhile, was deliberate. He gave it training. Cautiously. He employed a method known as the Alexander technique. It was created by Frederick Matthews Alexander, a guy. The entire technique focuses on breathing, posture, and allowing your voix flow without stress. Rickman did not mince words. He wasn't merely looking to sound nice. He desired authority, and his voice grew deep with that authority, serene, icy like silk-wrapped steel. If he was muttering as snappy or insulting as Gruber, each statement was powerful. Alan Rickman wasn't going tartaning into a villain in an action film. In 1987, he read the Die Hard script. He almost threw it away. After only 2 days of his initial trip to Los Angeles, when the London-trained actor saw the script, he exclaimed, "What the hell is this? I'm not working on an action film." He had recently returned from a renowned Broadway stint in which he played the crafty Vicomte de Leslie Donnerousse's Valmont. He had very complicated personalities. Something. His agents resisted his belief that action movies were beneath him. They reminded him that he had just arrived in Los Angeles and was already receiving an offer for a big-budget movie. That didn't occur to everyone. Rickman wasn't persuaded even then. John McTiernan, the director, was required to influence his perspective, sit down with him and promise to make modifications to the screenplay. Hans Gruber was rewritten by to give him intelligence, wit, and control. He also said stratagem, nuance, layers, and irony. This villain wasn't your typical one. Longer. Additionally, Rickman saw that the script also demonstrated intelligent, competent. He described the use of black characters as subtly groundbreaking for the 1980s. It was sealed. It had been close, he admitted, to near. If Rickman had stated no, the legacy of the movie would have been completely different. Rickman's casting as the character seemed unusual. Of a film. Joel Silver, a producer, attended a Broadway matinee of Les Liaisons Dangereuses. Rickman's performance was sensual, clever, scary, and captivating. Silveri immediately recognized Hans Gruber as I watched him command the stage. At the time, at 41, Rickman had never appeared in a motion picture. From a Hollywood perspective, he was Anno 1. Silver, however, was unconcerned. After the performance, he waited and made an offer. He was given the part. It was dangerous. Unknowns were typically not cast in popular action movies, but Silver followed his instincts, and in a year Rickman was famous. Rickman, however, did not simply turn up and do as he was told. He contributed his own original ideas despite being a novice filmmaker, and he had a significant effect. Slowing down was one of his best ideas. He proposed in trotting lengthy gaps. Before Gruber issued an order or threatened someone, he allowed stillness to linger rather than hurrying through the lines. Gruber was madder, more erratic. Viewers were never sure what he would say or do next. Because of these interruptions, the editor-director McTiernan loved the tension they created, but they were wild because they were difficult to cut. Produced years of Shakespearean play had an impact on Rickman's timing, which made Gruber feel authentic. This was no villain from a cartoon. This individual was one who he was frightening because he considered his actions before taking them. Action film antagonists of the period wherein mainly sour-tempered, muscle-bound thugs, they yelled, struck, and passed away. All of that was altered by Rickman. He delivered something completely different at 41. Gruber wasn't only intelligent, he was fashionable. He exuded charm, grace, and confidence. He was cultivated. He was neatly clothed. He had a clear voice. He did not have to lift his voice to be lethal. The discrepancy was noted by critics. He was called by Empire magazine the sociopath of the thinking person. According to Vanity Fair, he was the last villain to genuinely captivate viewers. Despite Gruber's scary nature, people liked observing him. It wasn't common. Rickman had changed the definition of evil on screen at the box office. Die Hard was a huge success. July 1988 saw its release, and it made in the United States alone $83 million. Well worth the time. It was the 7th largest the year's biggest hit. Rickman's career as a theater performer abruptly ended. He was a Hollywood celebrity. A whole new career has begun with one movie. He continued by playing the Nottingham Sheriff, C.C. Snape, and numerous others. However, it all began with AHN nearly declined the role. Gruber emerged as one of the most formidable antagonists in cinematic history, and Rickman's performance was the key to its success. Without Die Hard would not have been the same without him. Perhaps it wouldn't have succeeded at everything. Playing Hans Gruber in Die Hard made Alan Rickman a household name. 1988, he was unforgettable because of his voice, his eyes, and his icy serenity. But there was an issue with that celebrity. He was suddenly viewed as the villain in Hollywood. Rickman didn't want to remain in that position indefinitely, so he did something daring. In 1991, he adopted a totally different persona rather than pursuing another villain role. The ghost of Jaime Inrally, really deeply. It was an emotionally delicate role. He portrays a man who is full of heartbreak and love. Roger Ebert, a film reviewer, claimed that people were unaware of it was the same Die Hard character. That was Rickman's transformation. He didn't stop there. He became a member of Sense and Sensibility in 1995. He had an option. Played the Colonel Brandon, who was serene and honorable, or Willoughby, who was lovely and wild. The majority of actors would have chosen the more ostentatious part, but Rickman went with Brandon. It was a more gentle, patient man with a secret strength. Emma Thompson, the author of The frequently made jokes with him regarding the movie. She even noted in her journal how charming and behind the scenes was a kind Rickman. Over the ensuing years, he continued to startling others. He portrayed strong roles on stage, such as the Viscount d'Ilmont. He played a very disturbed husband in Close My Eyes. He declined Tobe Contained. He desired for everyone to see him in his entirety, his anguish, his comedy, his generosity, and each time he succeeded, even if he was only utilizing his voice. Rickman threw himself into it. He portrayed Marvin the Paranoid in 2005. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has an android. Voice acting was only one aspect of it. Held to his speech. His voice sounded deep, sluggish, and metallic. Depressed. He claimed to engage in mic as if his remarks were being pushed aside by an antiquated device. He wanted to sound like a robot who detested being one, and he managed to give Marvin humor and heart despite his robotic tone. People were shocked to learn that the actor behind Hans Gruber and Snape was the same person. Next, he once again astounded everyone in 1996, this time in the role of Rasputin. Dark and Rasputin, the HBO television series Servant of Destiny. Rickman portrayed the notorious Russian mystical. He was intense, unpredictable, caring, and terrifying all at once. Both award shows and critics were in awe. Rickman was awarded the Emmy, which the Screen Actors Guild Award for Best Actor and the Golden Globe. That's the television's triple crown. Actors hardly ever do that. Additionally, he used not even a major blockbuster but a TV film. His performance was that tremendous. One thing, however, never occurred despite all of that achievement. He was never nominated for an Oscar, not once. In 2009, he was dubbed the greatest actor to never be nominated for an Oscar by The Guardian. Admirers were taken aback. The critics were upset he had completed everything. Ardent Harry Potter fan and sensitivity. The Academy continued to overlook Rasputin. No one was able to ascribe it. He was respected. He was gifted. The heritage belonged to him. However, never the statue in gold. Long before the world was aware of the truth, in 2000, J.K. Rowling took Alan Rickman aside and said something in private that no one else would hear for another 7 years. Snape wasn't merely a resentful professor, not merely a chilly wizard of potions. His every action was motivated by a deep-seated secret affection for Harry's mother, Lily Potter, a love that was never given back. Everything changed in that instant. Rickman did stop at playing Snape. He turned into himself. He didn't have to speculate. No longer is he good or bad. The rest of the world continued to ask. Rickman was aware already. He was both guy divided between guilt and love. Additionally, for he kept the secret to himself for the next 10 years, it was evident in every half-said, icy glare. Heartbreak was what appeared to be cruelty in disguise. Rickman kept notes in private. His journals demonstrate the extent to which he used that understanding. Each sigh, each eye movement, and each brief pause had significance. He once wrote that he had a precipice to cling to because he knew the truth as well. Every scenario was two scenes in his head, what viewers witnessed and what Snape experienced: the pain, remorse, and unattainable loyalty. Pay close attention and you will also see it, particularly as he glances at Harry, a glimmer of tenderness, Lily's ghost. Snape was more than simply a fictional character to Rickman. He was what here living palimpsest, as it were, a soul that has been repeatedly written but never delated. He removed a layer with every film. He had to act at times ruthless, aware that he was laying the groundwork for a reward that nobody else could predict. He was deeply affected by Snape's death in the last scene. In a journal entry from 2007, Rickman acknowledged that he shed tears as he read it. According to him, it's similar to playing a part without practice. Snape's clothing served as a sort of armor for him. As soon as the ring began, something inside him shut down as the black robes encircled him, and he turned into cooler, less talkative, and less gregarious. It was no longer merely acting, it was survival. He almost gave up at one point. Only a few weeks following January's surgery, he reported on the 30th of 2006 that he has finally accepted HP5. He wasn't thrilled, though he felt numb. He had been considering the advantages and disadvantages for days, wondering if he was strong enough to continue. However, he was ultimately propelled on by a single thought: follow through. It's a narrative. Everything was stated in that line. He was no longer merely playing Snape. He's Snape holding everything in, suffering, and being misunderstood. His suffering wasn't only pretending, it was authentic. Then, 10 years after the cancer was in remission, came back. However, it was worse this time. A mild stroke in August 2015 prompted physicians to something far more dreadful: pancreatic cancer in stage 4. It had been concealed behind nebulous symptoms such as mild stomach problems and back pain. Nothing that danger yelled. But the truth struck like a ton of bricks. Cancer of the pancreas is brutal. Less than 7% make it to 5 years, and it went quickly for Rickman. Within 6, he was gone for months. On January 14, 2016, he passed away, a few days after David Bowie, who had concealed his disease as well. It was heartbreak on two fronts. Everywhere, fans were in disbelief. Rima Horton, his wife, subsequently revealed how it was shocking. They never thought it would be so serious, she said. Simply put, the symptoms were too slight, too ambiguous. However, this is the reason pancreatic cancer is so hazardous. Additional, within 3 months, about half of people with a diagnosis pass away. It kills more than in the UK alone, 800 individuals each month. Rickman was never going to make it. However, even as you're dying, he continued to give. He gave $100,000 to 4 charity in his bequest, each own that holds significance for him. His work started with RADA, which supported Art's 4th Facial Surgery Research Foundation's education program, often called Saving the International Performers Aid Trust, and FACES were each given $25,000. Rima received the remaining $4 million from his estate. However, Rickman's generosity went beyond financial gain. He had supported Saving Faces since 2000. He didn't simply lend his name. He went to events, recorded voiceovers, and participated in the 2014 National Facial and Oral Research Center opening. His presence increased credibility, awareness, and donations, and most above everything, hope. Rickman sent one more gift in the month before he passed away: the shape of a film. A tortoise consuming a strawberry was all that was depicted, but Rickman's voice telling the story. Each view brought in money for Save the Children's Charity and the Refugee Council. In his home in London, he recorded the voiceover while clearly unwell, but nonetheless witty, compassionate, and capable of making others laugh. The footage went viral upon his passing. Even though the voice would never speak again, was able to benefit the planet. And he's not finished yet. Saving Faces started a campaign in 2020, a $5 million fundraising effort for a permanent professorship in facial surgery that will be named in his memory. They desire 1 million donors. That is the number of people in the UK who get facial injuries or illnesses each year. However, the financing shortfall is enormous. In the UK, research on breast cancer receives more than $46 million a year. Cancers of the mouth and face receive just $1.5 million. The professorship of Alan Rickman intends to permanently alter that. Not all of Alan Rickman's roles were memorable. He kept a journal of his own life with the same level of attention and concern. From 1972 to 2015, a span of more than 43 years, he maintained a private journal, not 1 or 2 notebooks, but 26 complete books containing over 1 million words. He wrote about everything, including his ideas, journeys, feelings, and the actual experience of working with performers such as Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Thompson. He documented his readings, his exercise regimen, and even the little things that most individuals would not remember. Publication was not intended for these. That's what makes they seem so honest and unvarnished. His journals turned into a covert window into the peace and quiet world behind his commanding voice and solemn face. As his condition deteriorated, he said less. December 12, 2015, was the date of his last journal post. Pancreatic cancer had begun to rob him of everything by that point. Occasionally he would only write one line every day, but he remained despite his body's weaknesses composed. Nevertheless, he left with pals. He continued to smile. The majority of people, his true level of illness was unknown to anyone around him. Following Christmas, he was taken to the hospital. That room became something more, a place where people gathered, a quiet farewell from those who loved him most. On January 14th of 2016, he died. He didn't write again. His diary's final line wasn't merely a conclusion. For everyone who knew him, it seemed as though time had stopped. The entire world reacted right away. In barely 24 hours after his death was reported, more than 5.6 million tributes came on Twitter. They traveled from all over the world. J.K. Rowling expressed her heartbreak. Ian McKellen, Daniel Radcliffe, Emma Watson, and Kate Winslet all expressed their love for him, not only as a friend, but as an actor. Admirers who grew up seeing him as Hans or Professor Snape. Gruber talked about their personal sorrows and tales. It turned into one of the most severe waves of the decade's grief. David Bowie is one of the few famous celebrities who had passed away a few days prior, were given the same sort of international send-off. Rickman's last movie role turned out to be a surprise and a parting message. In the year 2015, he portrayed a British general making difficult choices in the thriller Eye in the Sky. Regarding drone warfare, audiences were deeply affected by one line: "Don't tell a soldier that he is unaware of the price of war." Following his passing, that statement turned into weary. He seemed to be speaking for more than simply his persona. He was bringing suffering, accountability, and silent fortitude to each scenario. 2 months after its September 2015 premiere, the movie was made freely available. He passed away. It was dedicated to him. Fans and critics remarked that it seemed like even though it wasn't intended that way, it was the ideal farewell. Following his departure, his loved ones had to figure out how to preserve his memory. Rima Horton, his girlfriend of more than 50 years, discovered a reason for her sorrow. She started to promote awareness about pancreatic cancer. She freely discussed how quickly the disease spread, how little symptoms it displayed, and how little people were aware of regarding it. She was surrounded by 800 empty pairs of trainers during a London event. Each pair stands for a life lost to this malignancy in the UK each month. She declared to the world that Alan still had a lot to offer and that his passings would be important.